Welcome to another episode of Torque Talk. I'm Caesar, and today we're going to get down to basics. In this episode, we'll be discussing basic wheel terminology to help you navigate your way around a wheel. Okay, so let's get started with some basic wheel terms. First, let's talk about the bead seats. The bead seats are the areas where the tire seats and seals against the wheel. The wheel width is the distance from one bead seat to the other. It's this distance that determines how wide or narrow the tire can be. Tires perform at their best when they're matched with an ideal wheel width, although they all work well within a range of widths. Our next basic term is drop center. The drop center, also known as the drop well, is a channel located in the barrel of the wheel. This channel provides space for the tire bead to be pushed into during installation. A couple things to note about the drop well. First, the position of the drop well determines if the tire installation will be standard mount with the wheel face up or a reverse mount with the wheel face down. The tire is always mounted to the side of the wheel where the drop well is closest to the wheel's edge. In some cases, that requires turning the wheel upside down to position the drop well correctly for tire installation. This is known as reverse mounting. Second, the drop well can cause installation problems with aftermarket brakes, or when the wheel diameter is smaller than the original wheel size. If the drop well is too deep and/or the wheel diameter is too small, it could make contact with the brakes, preventing the installation. Now let's move on to our next basic term, center bore. The center bore is the opening in the wheel that fits over the vehicle hub. The center bore is measured in millimeters and must be at least the same size as the vehicle's hub in order for the wheel to fit the vehicle. If the center bore is too small, the wheel simply won't fit over the hub. Center bores can be hub-centric or non-hub-centric. A wheel is considered hub-centric when the diameter of the center bore matches the diameter of the vehicle's hub, resulting in a snug fit. That perfect fit prevents the wheel from shifting during installation, ensuring a smooth ride when balanced properly. A wheel is considered lug-centric when the center bore is larger than the diameter of the vehicle's hub. This means the lugs are used to center the wheel on the hub rather than the center bore. Using the lugs for centering the wheel could allow subtle movement during the install, which could compromise a smooth ride. However, torquing the lug nuts in the proper sequence helps the wheel stay centered during the install, which eliminates those ride quality issues. Most aftermarket wheels are lug-centric. That being said, you can always adapt a lug-centric wheel to become hub-centric with the use of hub rings. Hub-centric rings keep the wheel centered during installation, preventing any movement that might cause ride disturbance. Okay, so it's time for another basic wheel term. Let's talk about the bolt pattern, also known as the PCD, which stands for pitch, circle, diameter. The bolt pattern is the number of lug holes in the wheel and the diameter of the circle they create. The bolt pattern in the wheel must match the vehicle's pattern, otherwise the wheel cannot be installed. Let's look at an example of a bolt pattern. A 5 on 4.5 inch bolt pattern means that the wheel has 5 lug holes that create a 4.5 inch diameter circle. I'd like to take a moment to explain how to pronounce the bolt pattern. The way we say the bolt pattern is not the same way as it's written. The bolt pattern is spoken as the number of lug holes on the diameter of the circle they form. So that 5 on 4.5 inch example we mentioned earlier would be stated as 5 on 4.5, not 5x or 5 by 4.5. A bolt pattern can be stated in millimeters or inches, and both are correct. For example, a 5 on 4.5 inch bolt pattern is the same as a 5 on 114.3 millimeter bolt pattern. How can you be so sure? Well, there's 25.4 millimeters per inch, so let's do some math and prove it. Let's grab our calculator and take 114.3 millimeters divided by 25.4. Yep, 4.5 inches. And it works the other way too. Let's check it out on our calculator. Let's take 4.5 inches and multiply by 25.4, and there you have it, 114.3 millimeters. Even though bolt patterns can be stated in either inches or millimeters, there are several bolt patterns that are expressed in millimeters only. Some examples include 5 on 100, 6 on 135, and 8 on 170. If you need to measure the bolt pattern without a bolt pattern gauge, the method changes depending on whether the wheel has an even or an odd number of lug holes. For an even number of lug holes, measure from the center of one hole across to the center of the opposite hole. This will give you the diameter of the circle. However, an odd number of holes does not provide a reference point for measurement. To accommodate for this, you need to measure from the center of one hole to the back of the opposite hole. Some wheels might have more than one bolt pattern. These wheels are referred to as dual drill or dual fit wheels. Having more than one bolt pattern allows that wheel to fit more vehicle applications. Well, those are the basics. I hope it helped you understand wheels better. The next step is checking out our Torque Talk episode explaining backspace and offset. Thanks for taking a moment to let me talk about wheel basics, and I hope to see you again for another episode of Torque Talk. See you then.